What's going on YouTube? Chronos here and welcome back to another PSO2 video. So today's video we're going to talk about something that I've seen get addressed in the comments a couple of times and kind of what I want to talk about, or what I've mentioned a few times in off comments, or some other people in the comments have mentioned or on the stream. And it's talking about something that was added in with the challenge mode. So with challenge mode being added into the game, we have a new currency called challenge miles, and these challenge miles can be used to buy plenty of things. And we're going to walk over here and we're going to talk to Muton, and he's going to be super loud for a moment. So we're going to let him be loud.
Fancy seeing you here.
That voice does not fit your character, in my opinion. However, you know what? I'll leave it alone. But so with the addition of these challenge miles, again, they're the currency you get from doing challenge mode. They added in a bunch of these weapons. So some people have asked in the past, where I got this look for this weapon, by the way. It's just an ideal camo. You get them from doing challenge mode, and you get the challenge miles. But another thing that's popped up in a lot of people's questions are, what about these 13-star Revolcio weapons? Are they good? Are they worth going for? So on and so forth. And one thing I've seen pop up a couple of times, which is the reason I actually want to address this in this situation, is if I can get this 13-star so easily, is it worth just using this 13-star? So before we jump into this, I'm going to preface all of this by saying one thing. What is worth and what is not worth very, very heavily changes based on how much you play the video game. Some decisions are not going to make the same sense for everyone. In some cases, it's better to go with one idea. In other cases, it's better to go with another. That's why what we're about to do is we're going to jump into the wiki, and I'm going to explain why I personally think that picking up these weapons is not viable for everyone. Now, let's first take a look at what these weapons have to offer us. So we've got a 5-slot weapon. It's a 13-star, not of course the best 13-star you can get hold of, but it's a solid one. They have different requirements, of course, for different weapons. I think it's mostly just like your main stat in most cases. Yeah, it looks to be just the main stat of the classes in most cases. So if you have the proper mag, you should be able to equip them fairly easily. They come with 60% light, which is their max, and their max 30 grinds, meaning that if you ever wanted to 35 this, I'm going to go into why I'm never going to say you're ever going to do that, but if you ever wanted to 35 this for some reason, you would need 6 of them total. 1 is the base, 5 to grind, or 5 to enhance into this weapon itself to get it to 35. Now, like I mentioned, you're pretty much not going to do that in this case, and I'll explain to you guys why. So let's go ahead and jump into the wiki so I can explain a little bit more about why I think this isn't. We're jumping the gun a little bit. So what is beneficial about these weapons? So the weapons are solid weapons. They have the proper element. It's almost like the game knows 60% light is what you want. You have the proper element. They're kind of cool looking weapons, to be honest. I like the style of weapon it has. It has a pretty cool effect. These look pretty good. Actually, I'll do this real quick so you guys can see. So that cool effect or whatever. The blades look pretty dope, not gonna lie. They look pretty good on your back too. It actually gets rid of the green while it's on your back, so I like it. So why am I saying they're not really worth it for everyone? So where these weapons have merit are actually their augments. They've got something called Soul Receptor. Soul Receptor allows you, exactly as it says, it greatly increases the soul type augment transfer success rate. And then it gives you all plus 10, just for Soul Receptor itself. So it does give you some stats, but it gives you, its basic use is for transferring souls between weapons. Some weapons that like straight up won't transfer their souls normally will transfer with Soul Receptor at sometimes a lower percentage. Other things like, say, Quartz Soul, instead of needing 3 of them for an 80% chance, you can use 1 in a Soul Receptor for a 100% chance. So it could be useful in doing those augments there. Now, makes perfect sense. Well, if it's useful for augmenting, you mentioned getting things ahead of time. That way you're pretty much working towards something else. That means it has some longevity, has some use, right? Not exactly. So for that, we're going to jump into the wiki. Let's go ahead and pop that open. There we go. So the argument I see pop up a lot when it comes to these weapons are, well, it's a 13-star. You can pick it up and it only costs you challenge miles instead of money. And when you do that, you don't have to worry too much about upgrading your weapon, right? You just leave it at base grinds. So one thing to keep in mind with 13 stars, and this has come up a lot in the Twitch chat as well, if you guys are following the stream. Technically, when this video goes live, I should be streaming shortly after, to be honest. It'll be a couple hours. I'll have to wake up. This will actually be scheduled and everything like that to go live on time, but I'll have to wake up and start the stream. It'll be the same day. Basically, something I've seen a lot pop up on the stream is, Well, I grinded my 13 star to plus 35 fairly easily. It only cost me 2.5 mil. So first off, whenever I mention how much money you spend on grinding a weapon, I'm quantifying everything, not just what you spend, but the resources you use and how much those resources are worth. So in a previous video where I talked about how much it costs to grind something, in reality, yes, if I were to buy everything, that's how much you spend. But even if you don't buy it, those resources can still be sold, meaning they are still worth money, even if you gather them yourself. And you're still putting those resources into your weapon. So to me, that still has monetary value. If you have a different value of money when you're looking at it, that's up to you, the individual itself. But that is what I mean when I say how much it costs to upgrade these weapons. And I say grind, I mean enhance, by the way. I know the terminology is a bit different between JP and NA, but that's what I'm referring to. It's enhancing the weapon itself. So when you're enhancing these weapons, you're looking about investing roughly almost 6 mil when it comes to just resources in general. So even at the cheapest 13 star, we'll put it down to, we'll say free if you're going to count challenge miles. And I personally won't even count challenge miles as free because they can even be used for something to then sell. You're really still investing about 6 mil into this. And when you have weapons that are some of your better weapons in the game, where 6 mil is basically half the cost of the weapon, you really have to keep that in mind. So what's the argument here? If you're saying Blade Revolcio is not worth it, what are you saying is? So let's look at why we would use the Blade Revolcio in these situations itself, right? So I've had a couple people say, well, you know what? If you're not, you don't have to grind it, keep it at base grinds, right? So we'll say keep it at base grinds, 1106. Well, actually, you know what? That's not even fair. So let's go over here and look at it here because we want to count the augments in with it as well. 1196 is what we have to work with, right? So 1196. We take a Blade Revolcio at base grinds, 1196, decent augment, don't get me wrong, pretty solid, but does not have any potential. Meaning there's no percentage based damage gain. You're not getting anything out of that whatsoever. Let's jump back a little bit, right? So this is just in the case of dual blades, but hey, look, we have the Knox Weapons. And Knox Weapons at plus 35 are 1235. They surpass the Blade Revolcio. But you're thinking, well, hey, I have to upgrade that weapon. Why wouldn't I just get a weapon I don't have to upgrade? That means it doesn't cost me any money, right? You're absolutely correct. But keep in mind that the reason we're picking up this weapon is to not spend money on something else to work into another weapon. When in reality, you're going to need these anyway. Let's say a worst case scenario, right? Well, hey, but what if I can upgrade my Blade Revolcio to being stronger than the Knox weapon? Well, you're gonna need at least a plus 26 Knox weapon to get that from 0 to 10, right? That might push it above this. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have the exact numbers of upgrading to plus 10, but let's say it pushes it above this, right? Well, you already invested the weapon into this. So now you've then just put money into this weapon for it to be just as good as this one, maybe a little bit better. If the reason you're picking up this weapon is not to spend money, why would you spend money on the weapon itself? You're spending resources. So why a lot of times players, much like myself, other players who played the game for a long time recommend things like, hey, look at your Knox weapon. Look at situations like Twin Orochi, where this is super, super damaging for bouncers specifically. I've mentioned in multiple videos for its Warring Devastation, where this weapon is on par, in some cases better than the Nemesis weapon when it comes to break stance. Actually, my Twin Orochi is affixed, I think, with 125 melee power. Actually beat out my Twin Orochi's affixed with 125 melee power on a breakable part, which is insane. It's not by far, it's very, very, very close, but it's just enough, and it's a 12-star weapon. So in situations where you're like, oh, well, we were running, Magatsu not too long ago, Twin Orochis could have been very, very powerful for a lot of players that didn't have access to the Nemesis weapons. So why 12 stars? Well, first off, it doesn't cost Lambda grinders to grind 12 stars. This Twin Orochi is going to be useful for you if you don't have a Nemesis weapon. In breakable parts, you're going to do more damage with this, even off element. Actually, even more so off element. And yes, the Knox weapons are a bit of an investment, but keep in mind, 12 stars are what you use to grind into your 13 star later. And this entire process has been about saving yourself some money when it comes towards getting into your bigger weapons. It's kind of a progression system. That's why I mentioned over and over and over again, do not rush your 13 star. Pick it up when you're ready to use it. Or in some cases, pick it up when you can set it aside to use it for later. In some situations, it might be better for you just to set it aside until you're able to actually upgrade that weapon to be better. yeah, maybe you get that really good 13 star, and maybe at base grinds, it's not better than like one of your other weapons, right? With all of its potentials and stuff. You wait until you get a second or a third one, and then you toss that weapon into this one. Maybe then it's like plus 20 and it's stronger than your other weapons. In that case, then it's worth it, right? You still want to get to plus 30 and plus 35, but in that situation specifically, it's worth it for you. You have to keep in mind your resources, what you're spending, what you're investing. It's going to end up hurting you if you're jumping into these things because you see, oh, well, this is just an easy pickup, right? Now, granted, Blade Revulsa doesn't cost me anything. And of course, I can use it for augmenting, right? That's the other nice side about it, is the augment stuff is really, really nice. Well, for one, you're not going to augment anything that's under the Blade of Revulsa. So you really don't need it for that reason. You can pick it up at any point in time to use it. Now, granted, it is good. To be perfectly honest, it would have made my augments a bit cheaper for me personally when I was making my augments. You guys saw the video for that one. It would have made it a little cheaper because it's got Might 3 on it, as well as having the what's it called, the Soul Receptor on it as well, which is really, really good. But it just doesn't make much sense to tell yourself, I'm just going to use this instead of picking up a Knox weapon and grinding it. You're going to be able to use it in most cases earlier than you can use a Blade Revulsa. If you're in that weird spot where you have a dex weapon, you have a dex mag, you can pick this up and you can use it before you have enough, defense to use your Knox weapon. Then yeah, in that case, it makes perfect sense. Sure, go for it. But remember that you're in reality kind of hurting yourself in a sense, not just using one of these weapons. It's pretty strong. Granted, I'm not telling you that you should be using this going all the way in endgame consistently over and over again, but in this early phase of the game where people are leveling classes, where they're still trying to get their foothold in, where they don't have as much experience as a lot of other players have with playing the game for a very, very long time, much like myself, where I can play every single day, not everyone's able to do that. So in those situations, I want to provide you guys alternatives that are going to help you with moving forward, that makes that upgrade feel good and not hurt your wallet nearly as much, and get to it much, much faster. Hopefully this helps you guys understand a bit more of what I'm explaining when I'm talking about these weapons and moving towards them. I know it's a little bit more in depth this time around, but I really wanted to give extra attention to why I specifically mentioned certain things over others. And again, yes, there is merit and there is value in picking up these challenge mile weapons or challenge mode weapons for the challenge miles when you're looking at augmenting. But by the time you're looking at augmenting, you're over here. You're not still up here. You're not augmenting this stuff. It's not worth your money spent. I mean, in some cases it is, but it sometimes isn't really worth like your brain power spent. You're going to be perfectly fine, so don't worry about that too much. And I didn't really talk too much about it. I'm perfectly honest, this is the second time I'm recording this video because I wanted to have a little bit more, I want to say structure, because my videos don't have structure. I'm just kind of talking with you guys, and I enjoy the videos that are set up like this. But to be perfectly honest, if you really wanted to get into a 13 star that badly, with the current event that's going on, picking up a Ray Soaring Blade wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Picking up a Ray weapon actually is pretty solid. Not only does it have a decent potential, it's got Astral Soul. So if you were to go into a situation where you're getting this to plus 35, or say, you know what, say you pick up 2 of them, because they when you purchase them from the Rising Weapon Badge shop, they are 30%. So you do need 2 of them total. But say you pick up 2 of them, right, and you use them, and you upgrade them to Union, and you use those as well. So first off, they're going to get stronger. They're going to go up to Union. They won't be as strong as these 3 here, but they're going to put you somewhere in this range roughly as far as power goes. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's going to put you somewhere around this range of power. And they're not going to push you over these weapons down here, but it will give you a good amount of damage buff. It's pretty solid to be able to just sit it aside, and when you get other Ray weapons, you can kind of just slam them into this one, get it to plus 35, and then you've got Astral Soul for later. That, in my opinion, is much, much more useful than worrying about something like the Blade Revulsa, or the Revulsa weapons in general. Granted, I say Blade Revulsa, but I mean Revulsa weapons in general for any of the classes. But if you are someone who is currently augmenting your Nemesis or your Slave weapon, because it does change depending upon your class, currently augmenting your Nemesis or your Slave weapon, and you're looking to transfer souls, this is a boon for you. This is super, super awesome, especially if you're working in the 5 slot range, 5 to 4 slot range, basically. But if you're someone who's building up, getting yourself moving towards your better weapon, you're going through your progression, just chill in the 12-star range. There are some situations, to be perfectly honest, people talk about these Revulsa weapons for other weapon classes where it would make no sense. Rods, rifles, there's no reason for you to touch Revulsias whatsoever. Rods have the Psycho Wand, rifles have the Elder Rifle. And I've shown those off tons and tons of times in these videos. Both of those have fantastic weapons to utilize. And you don't have to think about the Relic Revulsio. In other cases, just picking up your Knox weapon works perfectly fine. Get in there, get that grind on. I know how hard it is to grind. I know, I understand not getting a weapon you want is difficult, but hey, we've all been there. Eventually you'll get it. You'll get something, sell it, get your weapon. Anyway guys, that's pretty much all I had here for you guys today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to toss them in the comments below. You guys know I do go through those comments, even if it takes me a day or 2 or 3 or 4 in the most recent case. I actually just went through a ton of comments. Some of them were 4 days old. I apologize. I'm getting kind of backed up on comments, but I will get to them as soon as I can. If you guys have any questions, toss them in the comments below. Tons of other people are answering comments and questions too, so I appreciate you guys keep doing what you're doing. And of course, I double check back with those as well. So in case you're curious or you're concerned about people not giving you the proper information, I usually go in there and correct stuff if I can, if it's incorrect. If I just thumbs up it, then it's probably right, so you're good to go there. A like is much appreciated and absolves you of half of your ad block guilt. The other half is absolved by subscribing and keeps up with all the content. Makes you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Peace out.